In the top stories, Prime Minister Harris to host Leadership Matters this week. Antigua and Barbuda relaxes vaccine mandates ahead of Christmas, and El Salvador plans to build Bitcoin City. Hello and welcome to the ZIZ Midday Newscast. Today is Monday, the 21st of November 2021. I'm Jason Davis. Nationally, the virtual Town Hall Series Leadership Matters with Prime Minister Dr. the Honorable Timothy Harris continues on Tuesday at 8 o'clock. Prime Minister Harris will be joined by Chief Medical Officer Dr. Hazel Laws, CEO of the St. Kitts Tourism Authority, Raquel Brown, and Divisional Commander of District A, Superintendent Cromwell Henry. The general public is encouraged to tune in as Prime Minister Harris and his guests discuss a number of important matters, including the revival of the tourism sector. Leadership Matters simulcasts on ZIZ Radio 96.1 FM and other participating radio stations, and is also streamed live on social media platforms, including the Facebook and YouTube pages of the St. Kitts and Nevis Information Service. A young businesswoman is encouraging other young persons to be innovative and pursue their own unique business ideas as the global health crisis created by COVID-19 has spurred invention in many sectors around the world. Tawana Wigley of Rely Connect Services was made redundant from a job in the hospitality industry due to the downturn in economic activity. She partnered with another individual and started the company, which offers marketing and administrative services. Ms. Wigley attended the youth rap session organized by the Department of Youth Empowerment on November 17.
We know in a climate where you have to create your own opportunities, you can't sit and wait around for anyone. So I think entrepreneurship is very important, whether it's a skill that you have and you develop it and you say, you know what, I'm going to put my all behind it. I think that moving forward, I think entrepreneurship is definitely the way to go. Even if it's not your main source of income, I think that you should always try to harvest whatever talent you have or skills that you have and push it into a business.
Minister of Youth, the Honorable John L. Powell, said the global financial fallout from the pandemic has affected job opportunities in St. Kitts and Nevis. He challenged the youth to be innovative after completing their studies.
There are so many initiatives that are ripe for them to take advantage of, to do their own things. And that is what we want to do, encourage a lot more entrepreneurship, encourage a lot more proactiveness amongst young people. It might not get them all the way, but it might get them somewhere as opposed to them sitting and doing nothing.
According to information out of government headquarters, the government of St. Kitts and Nevis has been doing its part to facilitate business creation by offering special financing through the St. Kitts and Nevis Development Bank, tax credits, business training, and incubation spaces for startups. In observing Diabetes Awareness Week last week, Chief Medical Officer Dr. Hazel Laws has highlighted the relationship the disease shares with COVID-19. During the most recent COVID-19 briefing, Dr. Laws said, quote, "In the context of COVID-19, it's very important for you to maintain normal blood sugar levels. So if you are diabetic and perchance contract COVID-19, you fare better if your blood sugar values are within the normal range," end quote. She encouraged accessing care at health centers around the islands or at patients' primary physicians. Activities to mark the week included a church service, secondary school visits, and a panel discussion on ZIZ TV, as well as a virtual symposium with high schools, a public screening at Independence Square on Friday, and a walk between the Cenotaph and ECCB on Saturday. We now move to news on the regional scene. As the Christmas season approaches, Antigua and Barbuda has relaxed to some degree COVID-19 vaccination mandates, which, according to PM Gaston Brown, is because the government is compassionate. Ragib Aparicio of ABS News reports.
Let me make it abundantly clear that my cabinet is a compassionate cabinet. My government is a compassionate government, and it always be a compassionate government because at the end of the day, we are people-centered.
Prime Minister Honorable Gaston Brown speaking on his weekly radio program on Point FM Saturday. He says the approaching Yuletide season also played a role in Cabinet's decision to ease some COVID-19 vaccine mandates.
We want to make sure that everyone has a check going into Christmas. We want every single person, every family to enjoy a good Christmas. We want to go into 2022 as a harmonious nation with all hands on deck in order to facilitate a strong recovery.
As the country prepares for what the Prime Minister says will be a year of economic revival in 2022, the government will cover COVID-19 testing costs for unvaccinated public sector employees until December 31. Unvaccinated public sector workers are required to provide a negative COVID-19 test twice monthly.
Thereafter, they'll be required to pay for their own testing costs. And one of the reasons why we decided to cover the costs of the tests for public sector workers, I mean, those who are out of work, they may not have the monies to go to a doctor to pay $150 or $200 to get tested.
Meanwhile, Prime Minister Brown says the vaccine mandate for eligible students was not intended to be permanent, but it has served its purpose in encouraging vaccination.
There are some, I shouldn't say however, but there are some specific schools, especially public schools, that are below the 80% vaccination threshold to achieve herd immunity. So we have agreed with health officials that measures will be put in place or instituted to get herd immunity in those schools as soon as possible.
He adds the government will also bear the cost of COVID-19 testing for unvaccinated students. Rakib Aparicio reporting for ABS.
Still on the regional scene, concerns are rising in Jamaica regarding the Sixth Form Pathways program that's slated to begin in 2022, which would keep students enrolled in high school for an additional 2 years. This would move their high school tenure from 5 years to 7. One educational stakeholder says while the intentions of the Education Ministry are to provide opportunities for students, the ministry needs to provide a more detailed structure for the mandatory program. CVM Live reports.
Speaking with CVM Live Tuesday, President of the Jamaica Principals Association of Secondary Schools, Linvern Wright, says while he is in full support of the Education Ministry's Sixth Form Pathways program, many factors should be taken into consideration.
My association, JAPS, has no issues with the idea of it, because we do agree that there's a need for young people to be educated, and nobody could be worried about more education. But we think that what really is happening is that we're adding on 2 years without having done the kind of background work that was necessary to ensure that it is successfully implemented.
Wright also sought to outline the challenges which may present problems in the execution of the program.
We have a challenge with spaces, we have a challenge with personnel, we have a challenge with financial resources, we have a challenge with the technological and other resources that should go into departments like your home economics departments, your industrial arts departments. Right now, within our normal 5-year program, there is significant shortage in those areas. And to add now another 26,000 students per year, right, over 2 years, which would make 52,000 students, would really need about 26 schools per year.
He's suggesting that the ministry approaches this initiative on a phased basis.
That's a huge chunk of persons you want to take in at one time. Our view is that you should phase it in and ensure that the schools that you're looking at as your pilot are schools that are properly equipped, and then we assess and learn from that and move on. But our view is that it needs to be properly thought out. That's the weakness of it.
Javine McLean, CVM Live.
Internationally, after becoming the first country to accept the Bitcoin as legal tender, El Salvador plans to build the world's first Bitcoin city, funded initially by Bitcoin-backed bonds. Here's more.
Gearing up for something out of this world. El Salvador's President Nayib Bukele took to the stage over the weekend to announce plans to build the first ever Bitcoin city.
It's going to be right there in the Fonsecan Gulf, and it's going to include everything: residential areas, commercial areas, services, museums, entertainment, bars, restaurants, airport, port, rail, everything devoted to Bitcoin.
His aim to build a circular city at the base of the Conchagua volcano in the country's eastern region of La Union, where the volcano's geothermal energy would power Bitcoin mining.
Because this is a fully ecological city that works and it's energized by a volcano. That it's just right in the side of the city. So that's Bitcoin City, everybody.
The plan will initially be funded by Bitcoin-backed bonds, with the first to be issued early next year. And Bukele said no taxes other than VAT would be levied. It's a doubling down on the president's commitment to Bitcoin after El Salvador became the first country in the world to adopt the cryptocurrency as legal tender in September. But not everyone is a fan. Many Salvadorans remain skeptical, and Bitcoin's bumpy introduction has already fueled anti-government protests.
Canada's supply chain was already under pressure when floods hit British Columbia, effectively cutting Canada's busiest port off from the rest of the country. Now, Ontario businesses are feeling the hit. City News' David Zurajas has more.
These floods have not only put lives in danger and caused tremendous hardship to many in BC, but they've also affected Canada's supply chain.
This is Murphy's Law on steroids for the supply chain.
A series of landslides and washouts following heavy rain in British Columbia are taking a toll on businesses here in Ontario. Canada's Transport Minister warning Canadians to brace for more supply chain trouble as the impact of severed shipping routes sets in.
This supply chain delivers fuel, food, medicine, and essential goods to Canadians, and supports an agricultural sector that is facing catastrophic impacts.
Rocco Rossi, president of the Ontario Chamber of Commerce, describes the supply chain issues we were already experiencing as enormous and says we often forget how much we rely on ports far from home.
You take the Port of Vancouver, which is far and away Canada's #1 shipping and receiving port, and you effectively cut it off from the rest of the country.
He says with an increasingly global supply chain, disruptions like this hit Canada's retail, agriculture, and manufacturing sectors hard.
You miss a part in that chain, and you have to shut down the whole plant.
He calls the issue a two-way problem, harder to buy and to sell abroad. At the same time, the Chamber of Shipping is warning supply chains are complex and will likely take weeks or months to recover from the BC floods.
Logisticians are amazing at finding other routes, so it's not necessarily going to all travel by ship. Some of it will move by truck, and those routes are being planned for now, talking about trying to reroute, especially a lot of truck traffic through the U.S.
Kai Huang researches supply chains for McMaster University's DeGroote School of Business. He says in the future, businesses may be more likely to adopt some other strategies like dual sourcing.
It means that for my supply, I will supply the materials from 2 different sources. So in that case, if my supply chain in BC is disrupted, I still have another source.
And what people are now giving far more serious thought to is just-in-case inventory, and that is paying a premium. It's not going to be cheap, and so this is going to feed into inflation, but onshoring production.
In Oakville, David Zura, City News.
And now the weather for Monday, November 22nd. Present weather is partly cloudy with winds that are east-northeast at 9 to 18 miles per hour with lighter spells overnight. The temperature is 29 degrees Celsius or 84 degrees Fahrenheit. Seas are moderate with waves of 3 to 5 feet. The weather forecast for St. Kitts and Nevis today says it will be mostly sunny with a 20% or slight chance of showers. Weather tonight will be partly cloudy with a 70% or high chance of showers. Sunset today will be at 5:35 p.m. Sunrise tomorrow at 6:19 a.m. And that brings us to the end of the ZIZ Midday Newscast. Join us this evening for these stories and more in detail. Thank you for tuning in. I'm Jason Davis.